Chapter 2. Humans have an endearing trait, and by endearing, I mean absurdly predictable. They always underestimate their own potential. Take Charlie, for example, who's currently scrubbing at a stain in the lab hallway. To him, it's an odd, stubborn splotch, but to me, it's a golden opportunity. Charlie, bless him, has no idea that with each swipe of his mop, he's getting closer to his fate. I'm sure you're wondering what's so special about this patch of hallway, what precisely I've set up here to amuse myself. That's a fair question, so let me paint you a picture. Charlie's hand grips the mop handle with the ease of habit, his shoulders hunched as he works his shift, mindlessly circling back and forth. He's just another night janitor forgotten by the world, erasing the day's mess left by important people who wouldn't give him a second glance. But tonight, he's not just circling a mop around tile floors. No, he's unwittingly circling a threshold, a hidden layer in the world around him, on the brink of something extraordinary. A doorway hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the right fool to stumble across it. As he scrubs, he pauses, leaning forward to frown at a particularly ominous stain. The splotch has a swirled, dark look to it, almost like a void, an opening into something much deeper than the smooth linoleum beneath it. It's actually just grape jelly. Don't look at me. I didn't put it there. But the effect is enough to catch his attention, enough to make him stare, maybe even wonder if he's somehow standing at the edge of something vast, something unknown. I observe this with a grin, feeling the familiar itch of delight building within me. You see, Charlie has a quality I find irresistible, a hunger, a strange flicker of curiosity in his eye, one that no amount of routine has managed to snuff out. It's faint, but it's there, just barely enough to catch, and for a mortal like him, with so much untapped potential just simmering beneath the surface, all it takes is one well-placed nudge. And I'm nothing if not excellent at nudging. But here's where it gets interesting. I can't actually speak to him, not directly. My communication is more subtle, a quiet suggestion threaded through his own thoughts, more like an itch at the edge of his mind than an audible voice. He can't hear me in the traditional sense. He just feels an idea forming, a notion nudging him in one direction or another. For someone like Charlie, who's so easily swayed by the smallest of impulses, it's the perfect way to lead him where I want. I lean in close, not speaking so much as weaving the thought through the hum of the fluorescent lights, letting it curl at the edge of his awareness. Have you noticed how quiet it is tonight, Charlie? He glances around, brow furrowing as he shifts his weight on the mop handle. It's funny, watching him respond to my suggestion, the way he can't help but obey the instinct to glance over his shoulder. There's nothing there, of course, only the sterile hum of machinery and the faint familiar scent of disinfectant. But the silence feels heavier to him now, like a stone pressing into his ribs, like it's wrapped itself around him and won't let go. His pulse quickens, his heart rate picking up just slightly, and I lean back, enjoying the slow, delicious movement of watching his curiosity flare. I wait just a moment longer, then nudge again. Why don't you take a look, Charlie? No one's watching. It's just a peek. For a second, I think he's going to brush it off. His shoulders stiffen, and he glances back at his mop, as if grounding himself in the dullness of his nightly tasks. But then, something in him shifts, his gaze drifting past the familiar mop bin bucket, over to the door marked Experimental Sector Authorized Personnel Only. The button for the door glows faintly, a small green light flashing steadily in the dim hallway. I softly prod him one more time. Maybe tonight things could be different. He lets out a chuckle, soft, almost nervous. Don't be silly, Charlie, he mutters to himself. But even as he says it, his fingers reach out, hovering near the glowing button as though he's forgotten he's even moving. Hesitation is exquisite, stretching out like a silence before a storm. I feel his nerves, his mind dancing between instinct and curiosity. And then, just as the moment threatens to slip through my grasp, he presses the button. Normally, a security badge would be needed to gain entrance without setting off alarms. You see, I've taken the liberty of smoothing over the usual protocols. A subtle nudge here, a rerouted system there. Really, it would be embarrassing for the god of chaos if a few paltry clearance levels could get in the way of a good time. For him, the door unlocks as if welcoming him in, silent and unobtrusive. Just another odd stroke of luck he doesn't think to question. The door opens with a soft hiss, a small exhale of air that seems to echo louder than it should in the quiet corridor. The pale glow from within spills out in a pool of sterile light, illuminating the threshold with a soft, almost inviting warmth. He pauses there, a flicker of doubt passing across his face as though he's crossed an invisible line. "Go on, Charlie," I murmur, though of course he doesn't hear me. "It's just a room." And he steps forward. The experimental sector is a stark, sterile maze of unmarked rooms and locked cabinets, all designed with the cool precision of science and the paranoia of those who believe they control the unknown. Shelves of equipment line the walls, rows of vials, scanners, and tools with purposes Charlie could never hope to guess. But there, in the center of it all, suspended in a glass containment unit, lies something especially peculiar that catches Charlie's eye. Ah, the shard. There's nothing quite like it in all of space and time, and for good reason. It's a sliver of something ancient, an artifact from a realm where the laws of physics are more like polite suggestions. To most, it would look like a crystal, a fractured sliver of glass catching the light in strange, unsettling ways. But Charlie isn't most people, and I've tuned his senses just enough so that he'll notice what others wouldn't. He stops in his tracks, his gaze locking onto the shard as if caught by a magnet. The world around him seems to fade, the sounds of the lab falling away until only silence remains, thick and heavy. He can't look away. It's as though the shard is looking back at him, peering into the cracks in his mind, searching out every quiet yearning, every hidden dream. "What is that?" he whispers to himself, voice barely audible in the quiet. I don't answer. It's not my place to tell him what he's seeing. It's my place to watch him discover it on his own, to let the realization unfold in its raw, unfiltered truth. Besides, the suspense is delicious. I could practically pop some popcorn and settle in for the show. He steps closer, his fingers twitching at his sides, an urge to reach out just barely contained. His gaze drifts over the shard, and his mind scrambles to categorize it, to label it as something he understands. But that's the beauty of it. It doesn't belong in this world, and no amount of logic will make sense of what he's seeing. "It's beautiful," he murmurs, almost reverent, as though he's forgotten where he is, forgotten everything except the strange, shimmering light refracting from the shard's surface. And then, feeling that the time is right, I plant the final suggestion, soft and subtle, curling around his mind like smoke. "What if it's yours to take, Charlie?" For a moment he blinks, the spell almost breaking as rationality fights to assert itself. But curiosity is a powerful thing, especially in someone who's never quite felt at home in his own life. And so, with a slow, hesitant movement, he reaches out, his hand hovering just inches from the glass, fingertips tingling with the proximity to something he doesn't understand but craves all the same. His fingers brush the containment unit's glass, and that's when it happens. A pulse ripples through the room, sharp and electric, like a shockwave slicing through the air. For a split second, the world blurs, reality twisting around him as if it's been stretched thin. The light from the shard flares, filling his vision, swallowing him whole in a wash of brilliant, searing color. He stumbles back, clutching his head, a sharp ringing in his ears as his mind reels from the sensation. Images flash before his eyes, strange, disjointed visions of places he's never been, people he's never met, colors that don't belong, sounds that shouldn't exist. It's as though he's been thrust into another world entirely, a place that's both familiar and completely foreign. And through it all, I can feel the shard's influence sinking into him, like a hook latching onto his soul. It's marked him now, a tiny fragment of its otherworldly nature settling into the cracks of his mind. He doesn't know it yet, but he's no longer just Charlie the janitor. He's been touched by something ancient, something that doesn't let go once it's found its way in. Slowly, the visions fade, leaving him breathless, disoriented. He stumbles back, blinking as the world sharpens into focus again, the sterile lab coming back into view. But nothing feels the same. The air is heavier, the shadows darker, as though the very room is pressing in on him, watching him with a strange, patient hunger. "What was that?" he murmurs, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake off the lingering traces of what he's seen. I could tell him, of course. I could explain that he's brushed up against something beyond his comprehension, that he's taken the first step on a path that will unravel everything he's ever known. But where's the fun in that? No, I think I'll let him figure it out. For now, he's left with the ghost of something vast and unknowable, clinging to him like a shadow. And as he stumbles out of the lab, a new kind of curiosity igniting within him, I can't help but feel a thrill of excitement. Because he's hooked now, and I'm just getting started. He doesn't know it yet, but tonight was only the first taste. Soon he'll be unable to resist the pull, that itch in the back of his mind, a craving for something beyond his reach, and I'll be there, waiting, with a grin, ready to turn his quiet little life upside down.